speaking of which, let's jump into this. We've got Elijah calling in also from talkative xenophobes. That's worse than xylophone one. Who's a theist who believes that in the beginning was nothing and would like to discuss that. And I know this is relevant to what you were talking about earlier, Paul.
Amazing. Let's do it.
Elijah, you're on the line, my guy.
Hey, before we get into
Oh,
this, I'm wondering, I don't know much about Paul, so I'm wondering if he has any specific credentials in this area.
Credentials? No, here's my
Yeah.
credentials.
Okay.
Like 6 years ago, I thought that Noah built an ark that had dinosaurs on it. That's the level of credentials I have, and I'm catching up. So I'm excited to learn.
doing an amazing
Well, it
job
sounds
so far, Paul. Killing it.
no, well, it actually, it sounds like you had the truth and you lost it. So what happened? I mean, I'm not going to tell you
I
anything you don't already know.
I studied more, so but no, but I'm excited to hear what you know that I don't
I'm not going to.
about this
You already,
this
you
nothing.
already know the creation account very well. I mean, I'm assuming you've already read the creation account. You read Genesis,
I
so you know what happened.
I just want to
uh
clarify before we move on because I don't want to steer this call too hard. I want to talk about what you called in for, but just like the fact that you said you had the truth and you lost it. Just to clarify, then you're saying that you currently believe that there was a global flood and that a man named Noah built a giant boat, and on that boat was dinosaurs.
Hey, okay, well, when you put it that way, I don't believe that. No.
Okay, well that's what just what Paul just said.
that's
He
what
said
I
that there were
did. Yeah.
dinosaurs. Yeah, there were
Okay, well,
dinosaurs on the ark.
you believe a caricature of the Bible.
No, we
I
don't
don't
believe
I
that
no
at
longer,
all.
but let's start from
Um,
scratch. Let's start what I
well,
the
okay,
way I
well, yeah,
lost
let's
it
start.
was I said let's assume nothing. So let's assume nothing.
Let's
Start
assume nothing. Well, were you an evangelical? Just tell me that first, please.
absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So you are coming from literally the most brain dead branch of Christianity. You understand that?
I wouldn't phrase it that way, but we're not here to discuss what I used to believe. We're here
No,
to
but it's
discuss.
funny because I don't get how you jump from the most brain dead branch of Christianity. How do you go from that to just pure atheism? I mean, you have because there's a
Maybe
lot of
maybe I'm just the dumbest man alive. That's possible.
Well,
Maybe I'm just
what is the
incredibly stupid.
what is
maybe
the
I can
energy
enlighten
here?
you.
Like, what's the vibe? It's like to call in to insult other creationists while also coming in as a theist and saying that there was nothing in the beginning. And I see the last time you called, you were talking about the no atheists and foxhole argument. And I also have a note here in the producer chat that apparently you called in earlier and had a discussion with Matt. So who knows how that went? Maybe that's setting you on a weird edge now as you talk to us. But just very weird to insult what the man used to believe, which he would probably agree with, and then come in to say, well, how did you become an
Well,
atheist? You lost the truth. It's like hitting
well,
from
even
15 different weird angles at the same time. Very strange way to
well,
start
okay.
the call.
Or had you were you are you a formerly religious person or are you atheist your entire life?
I was raised pagan, so I was taught to believe in like spells and witchcraft and like drawing pentagrams on the ground and burning little herbs and saying magic words
Okay.
and shit. But also, my dad was Catholic. I don't know how that happened with my parents, and so like I had the pagan side of the family and then the Catholic side of the family, and so and I also grew up very poor. I was raised on a lot of government assistance and stuff, and so like that brings with it a lot of diversity. So I was around a lot of religions. My family was very culturally conscious, so we went to like every mosque and temple and everything around town that we could to learn to pray and to practice. So I had a very multicultural religious background, and I dropped all that and became an atheist, and then progressed as to become an anti-theist when I started applying the same rules of logic and morality to my belief system as I did to literally anything else ever. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Okay.
So
Well, that's
Elijah, but
yeah.
none of the there ever being nothing isn't really a religious position, unless I'm
Yeah.
mistaken. So we can set the religions aside, and you can
Uh,
explain to us how you know that there ever was nothing.
no, that's because that's what it says in Genesis. I already explained that.
Okay, so it is a
Oh,
religious position then in that case. It's just there it says it in the book and therefore it's true.
I mean, it's not a religious position, it's the truth.
Okay, so
so But hold
You
on.
go first. You go first.
So Genesis 1:1. Can you quote that for me, Elijah?
In the beginning,
Fine.
well, let me look right now. In the when God created the heaven and the earth, that's 1:1, and 1:2 is the earth began unformed and void. So there's your proof right there.
Yeah. No, but that neither of those verses have the word nothing in them.
Unformed and void.
Yeah, that's not
Unformed and
nothing.
void describes something. Absolutely, you can't.
God, nothing.
How does nothing like if something is unformed, it's still a thing. Like a pile of clay is an unformed pot. And to put void in
Okay, so what
there,
is the
you could just
void?
say it's
Why
empty.
yeah.
You could
Okay.
because
Well,
if it's weird that you skipped the next part, which is in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was on the face of the waters. So before God created anything, there was water in the void, which isn't nothing.
no, yeah, now you're gonna Genesis 1:3. So you understand the
No,
creation account.
that's
See, this
still
is
verse
why
two.
no,
That's still verse
no,
two,
no,
which you
no.
stopped on.
Okay, well, okay, do you
Yes.
understand? First of all, this isn't in the original Hebrew, so this isn't even a faithful translation. Do you understand the Hebrew is you cannot translate the actual meaning of Hebrew. You understand
So
that?
just to be clear, what you're saying is the actual like accurate creation account is from Genesis 1:1 to halfway through Genesis 1:2. At the halfway point on that
No,
second
I'm
verse,
saying if
you
you
need to
understand the
interpret it.
Hebrew, it's all in a chronological order, and in the
So,
beginning there truly was nothing.
Okay, and just to be
so
clear, do you speak Hebrew?
No,
Okay, so
but
then you don't
I've listened to
understand it
rabbis on
either.
it. Yes, no, but literally you can listen to rabbis talk about this.
well, but rabbis are interpreting, and
Rabbis
I have
understand
definitely
Hebrew.
well, no, but understand that I have heard rabbis who violently disagree with each other on this point. That
Mhm.
there
Yeah,
being
so
nothing is a possible interpretation, but it is not the only interpretation. And
yeah,
so I'm curious
that
as to why someone who doesn't believe your book should look at this and say, well, you guys can't agree on what this verse means. Therefore, I should agree with Elijah's interpretation, who doesn't speak
well,
Hebrew. That's kind of weird.
why should I believe your interpretation of scientific doctrine?
Well, you shouldn't. 'Cause my position is we don't know if there ever was something or not. So if you disagree with
How
we
do you
don't
know
know,
science how do you know science is real? You can't verify the basic axioms at the foundation of science, can you?
so
Do you just a question?
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you have any formal training in science, Elijah?
I have a bachelor's degree, so no.
A bachelor's in what? Is it in a science?
And it's in a science, but I don't consider that very credentialed, so not really.
Well, I mean, so if it's in a science, like then that would be some formal training in science. Like what science is your
Yes,
bachelor's degree in?
I operate under the presupposition that science is true, but I actually don't really know. Can't prove that.
Well, that's the issue is that it's not a presupposition. If you have formal training in science, then you will have taken science courses with a lab component where you learn not only like what we know, but how we know it, the history of how we learned it, and also
That's not
conducted
true.
some basic experiments for yourself. Like when I got
That's not
my
actually true.
degrees, like okay, well then you got a bad education then because like when I got my degrees, like that was a part of it. I
No,
proved the speed of light in lab. I demonstrated the force of
no,
gravity in
yeah,
lab. I
that's
demonstrated
not.
evolution in lab.
Those are not fundamental axioms of the universe. So how can you prove that 1 + 1 = 2?
Oh, there's a
That's
162-page proof on that.
yeah,
There's
that's
absolutely
just a truism. Like that's just a logical thing that we can like look at. We're assigning labels to values of things.
Okay.
And like
Okay.
that's the
You know
thing
what,
about
guys? I'd
math
love
is that
to continue this
it's
conversation.
self-referential.
I'd love to continue this conversation, but I do have tickets to Star Wars tonight, so I'm gonna have to go. But
So you
it was a
called
great
in
that's okay.
program.
completely unprepared and ready to
Yeah.
bounce within 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you guys took a while to answer me. Too bad. Maybe next time you should
Yeah, because
answer
you're not
faster.
that fucking important, bro. Like it's
What?
you
Well,
got
why?
nothing interesting to say for 10 minutes. Like that
People wait
sucks.
for
And you're gonna sit
hours.
here and Yes, you're gonna sit here and say, like, listen, the beginning of the Bible is true, but only if you interpret it in the way that I do, which is the way that not a lot of other people do, including the scholars that I claim to think are correct on everything. And like not
Three.
even mentioning that Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2 are completely different creation stories with different orders of
Okay.
events. Like,
Okay.
you've got nothing to
Okay.
talk about here.
Before I go, can I just tell you guys my hypothesis about this entire show?
No. Bye.
No,
Good gravy, y'all.
but it's a good time to mention I worked on the Star Wars films, so that's fun.
Hey.
I'm credentialed.
Go
I'm more credentialed on where he's going than yeah.
so Arden, if you're do you mind me reading what you put in the chat over here for us to
Oh,
see?
please do. Please do.
Okay. I know that's like the private chat for us. I didn't know if it was cool, but like right when we took that call, Arden put a note in the chat over here saying, Elijah called in earlier and was apparently quite dishonest. Matt requested he personally be called a dishonest fuck. I told him I'd make no promises. So like that's the history of Elijah on this show. Was dishonest with Matt earlier today, was fucking just absolutely lazy with us here at this show. Try harder, Elijah.
Yeah.
Just try harder. You can't prove 1 + 1 = 2. Therefore, Genesis 1:1 and 1.5 are absolutely true.
I'm also curious how he interprets that so literally, but then laughed at me that I thought Noah built a boat. But okay, well,
Right. That's like that's what gets me is like the whole like Answers in Genesis also
mhm.
believes that. Answers in
Yep.
Genesis has like whole pages about how dinosaurs were on the ark and how that's actually dragons and it's all based on them taking a very literal interpretation of the Bible and saying that like when it talks about dragons and I think the book of Job that the Bible is inerrant and therefore there must be things called dragons and that's what dinosaurs were and therefore dinosaurs were on the ark and blah 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 and like it they are I guarantee better Bible scholars than Elijah and
Yes.
like draw some meaning out of that. And it's still fucking wrong. And so like, I just such weird energy. Such weird energy. You were completely brain dead. And now you believe this other thing that's also wrong because it's not my interpretation of the thing. Because you have to know Hebrew, which I don't, but like other people do. Oh
Mhm.
man.
Yeah.